photographer. So now we'll start the presentation segment where we will have youth speakers to actually share about communication, engagement, and education. So before we start, a big hello to all of you who are tuning in online, for virtually joining us. So welcome to the Wow and Us event. So the three speakers are actually from diverse backgrounds, and we are going to share how we use our own ways or our own skill sets to actually raise awareness and then promote coexistence as well. So why communication, engagement, and education is so important is because if you think about it, communication is key. And if there's something that we are truly concerned about, we should communicate it or even hopeful for. And when a message is brought up, we cannot just stop there, right? We need to engage with people, we need to involve them in what we believe in. So through the engagement, then we can raise awareness, and with knowledge, then we can ensure that there's sustainability in what we do, the efforts that we put in. Okay, so I will be starting off with communication. And because I'm an artist photographer, I actually use art to communicate my ideas and my concern for wildlife. So, my project is Death by Man, and it's actually a project that uses an obituary format to tell the stories of animals that have perished in the hands of men. So, like roadkill, window strike, abuse, all those. So, these are the obituary which you have seen in the other room. So it's more of an experiential kind of project where you have to be in person. If what you see here is like a mini exhibit, because the actual one is supposed to be placed as like a semicircle, like a columbarium where you feel you're encapsulated inside this space and you're supposed to feel overwhelmed by the number of animals that's facing you. Okay, so of course I didn't start out as a creative. I was actually from horticulture, so I actually studied plants. And I actually went into that course because I enjoyed nature, but then I felt that I wasn't going anywhere because I felt that the people who share the same concerns and passion with me, we were all trapped in a bubble. And outreach didn't go much further than those of us who already cared for the environment. So I'm sure some of you would feel the same way. So I decided to jump out of horticulture and go into arts, because I know I'm not very good with my words. So I believe that visual arts will actually give me a visual language to speak to people. Then of course, when I went in, I didn't know where I stood. So thankfully, one of my professor, she actually introduced me to art science. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it. So it's a combination of using science to inform art and also art to translate science. So that one really opened up the idea of like information and expression coming together. So final year project came, then I knew I want to do a project on environment. But of course, I never imagined that I would go into obituary because that's a bit far-fetched. But eventually, when I reached that stage, I wondered if I was pushing the boundaries a bit too far because, pantang lah, like dealing with death and all those. But I felt that we needed a wake-up call and a slap in the face, so I just went for it anyway. Just whack only. So there's a few layers to my project. So it's biophobia, out of sight, out of mind, and the lack of local context. So at the beginning, of course, it's searching on the topic of what to do, right? So of course, I didn't end up with wildlife first. I asked researchers and organizations, and then I found out that the reoccurring term was biophobia. I think one of the groups actually touched on biophilic city and all those. So biophobia is the fear of nature, and of course it was very ironic to me because we grew up in a green city, filled with biodiversity everywhere. So I decided to went on to search about it a little more, and also question myself, how come we grow up with so much greenery around us, but then we still want to avoid nature, but on the other hand, we want to experience nature because we want to take trips to Gardens by the Bay and Botanic Gardens. So we are a bit confused, and it seems that we can only accept nature if she is tamed and controlled. Yeah, so I know we are transitioning into nature in a city, and we are going into a biophilic phase, which is a great step forward. But the question now is, are we ready for it? Yeah, are we ready to accept nature as a whole package? So biophobia was a very new term for me, and I decided to understand it, I have to experience it. So I signed up as a wildlife rescue volunteer with ACRES. And then it didn't take too long for me to realize that we were rescuing the people from the animal instead of the animal from their injuries or whatnot. Yeah, so the rescue shifts actually gave me a more personal voice in telling my stories, telling my experiences, rather than documenting it of other people, written records or verbal sharing. Then, of course, the next idea that actually contributed to Death by Man is the idea of us being very distracted by city life, because it's very easy to forget about what exists beyond the curated greenery that we see in front of us, because we always see like pigeon, myna, all those kind of things. And also, the news always inform us about the common animals we see in the news is like pythons or wild boars and all these. So we are pretty much only aware of these animals. So we are very dependent on the news to keep us informed and to expose us to all the animals that they are. So for example, the samba deer, I'm not sure who actually remember this, it was about 2-3 years ago. So there was a few media coverage on this. If this had went unreported, a lot of us wouldn't have known that samba deers exist, and that includes myself, because I only imagine wild boars as the largest mammal here in Singapore. And moving forward is also under realizing that we have a lack of local context here in Singapore. So you imagine when you think about, if I were to ask you to think of a list of animals, you'll probably think of all the animals that don't exist here in Singapore, like zebra, giraffe, tiger, all those kind of animals. But when I say, give me a long list of animals that exist here, you start to ponder a bit, or maybe you don't even have a list of animals, because there's a lady who also told me that she only knows that there's pigeons. So she even classified the miners and the sparrows as pigeons. Yeah, so it's that kind of concept. And the thing about it is that our focus is very drawn to issues and conservation efforts elsewhere. So like growing up, I don't have much education, or at least I don't have much memory on having education on native wildlife. I don't know about this generation or about you guys, but it resulted in me growing up thinking that Singapore got no wildlife, we got nothing to worry about, And I really hope, I really wish that I had the knowledge at the beginning, because I didn't have all this knowledge before I started this project, even though I enjoyed environment, because it was just climate change, reuse, reduce, recycle, but this is also a big issue here in Singapore. Yeah, so as mentioned, our focus is very drawn elsewhere, but we also need to learn to bring our focus back to Singapore, because even though these issues are very real and we need to give them attention, but back home also we need to realize that we have our own issues as well. So we need to be aware of what we have here in Singapore as much as we are aware elsewhere. So when I came to that realization, then I realized that, okay, if I want to do a project wildlife, I must do full focus on Singapore, because a lot of people already have done overseas. But what are we, we should think a little bit more of our own home. So that's where Death by Man came about, where I decided to work on animals that have perished in the hands of men. And to present that idea, I had to present it in a way where it grabs people's attention. It's not just a journalistic style of approach. So just a run through of the process is, of course, meeting the researchers and the organizations to find out what is going on. Then when I realized biophobia and animals was the issue here in Singapore, I went ahead with image crowdsourcing. So I got public to participate and provide me any encounters that they have with carcasses or animals that they see on the streets, and it informed me of what was going on, what are the types of animals that fall victim, and of course the causes of death. And of course, after that, finally it proceeded down to me doing the actual work, getting the documentation, getting the carcasses, and the photo shoot, of course. So just a few behind the scenes video. If you are sensitive to blood and severed limbs, maybe for this first video, you just brace yourself. Yeah. So what I do is, of course, I get, the organization will contact me to say like, they have this case, they have this carcass, what happened to it. So when I go down, I will actually look at the whole carcass first to see as a full, and then I will go down to the injury, and then I will go down to the micro details like their eyes, their beaks, their talons, and all those. This is an osprey. It actually is an airstrike. So it was found at a airbase. Yeah. Sometimes we are not sure how exactly it died, but we can just, it's like CID, that kind of thing where you make guesses, but you base off like, if it was found at an airbase, most likely it's an airstrike, right? Yeah. So that's how that's how I come up with my documentation and my stories as well. I can't write exactly point by point because I don't know what exactly happened. But as a creative, I have to imagine the kind of stories, the kind of things that happen by just that few details that were given to me. Then, of course, the photo shoot. I don't have a studio, and I don't shoot in a studio, so I always shoot on the floor, like all the time. So that includes my house toilet and my house lift lobby. So I will make do with whatever I have. And as you can see, that one is actually a white gunny sack. It's the most portable backdrop that I have because I need to travel around. And also I'm dealing with a lot of bodily substance. Yeah. And of course, it's not just like point, shoot, print, and then present to people. It's about how people receive the message. So presentation also plays a huge role. Photography is not just like, I take a pretty picture and then that's it. So that's where I started going around asking people, of course, observing their reaction. And it seems that people were very taken aback by the idea of death. And that's where the conversations all started. So conversation is a key factor in when we talk about these issues, because it's not just about, we have wildlife problem and then full stop. But we need to discuss in it. So it's like how all of us are here today. You guys actually talk about various things in our relationship with wildlife. So it came out with obituary portrait. So I won't cover everything because it's going to take a long while. So I'll just cover the main one, which a lot of people ask me, is why I named the animals. The thing is, I give the animals a name because I want to give them an identity. I want them to be seen as an individual rather than just another animal. So to give you a better idea, if you have a pet, or if you don't have, just imagine you have a pet, the animal will have a name. So immediately the animal becomes like no longer just another dog, another cat, you know, there's an identity to the animal. So that's what I want to do, and yeah, form this personal connection between species that are beyond ourselves, or if you think about it, even objects like a soft toy. So to bring it closer to home is to see animals as, to see ourselves. We also see ourselves as unique individuals, and therefore we should link it back to other living beings as well. Yeah. And oh yeah, there's no intention to anthropomorphize the animal, in case you are thinking about that. The names are just there to create a bridge for you to comprehend the idea of individualism and the value of each animal life. So I don't want animals to be seen as one species. I want them to be seen as individuals in a species. So when each individual dies down to its final one, then you know it's too late lah. So if you're interested, you can look up on passenger pigeons. They were once a species that was so abundant that, you know, people think that there's no way you can hunt them to extinction, but it happened. And all the way to its last individual, her name is Martha. So they even gave her a name, and at that point, then they recognized her. So yeah, everything led up to the obituary that you see today. And whoops. Oh. Yeah, so because I had the opportunity to work with carcasses of various species, that's where I want to bring people closer to their details as well. So I do take random shots of them whenever I go on photo shoots. So I do post them up on social media so that people also have a glimpse of all these animals, because you always see them from afar, but you don't actually see textures close by. So if you're interested, then you can just continue your journey on the project's Instagram page. So I just want to end off with giving thanks to the organizations that supported this work. Is Lee Kong Chian Natural History Museum, ACRES, WRS, and of course my professors, because I started this out as a FYP project, and they guided me through this entire process, and of course everyone that contributed in one way or another. So yeah, I hope this sharing will help you realize the power of communication through visuals as well, and also to see the possibilities when two different disciplines come together, when science informs art and art actually translates science. So now I will invite Margina. Yeah.